Good afternoon. I'm Christopher Clark, Town Administrator for the Town of Harwich. As you can probably tell, it's summertime because I'm dressed down a little bit. I wanted to talk about an issue today about really traffic safety and what goes into the town kind of determining safe areas and not safe areas, and what can realistically the town do and what are we obligated to pursue. We do have some requirements. One thing that comes up frequently in traffic enforcement is, well, why can't I just pick the speed limit that I want for my street? I think everybody in some ways would love to have a speed limit that's 15 to 20 miles an hour and everybody to go by, pretty quickly, pretty slowly and safely. Unfortunately, that's not really the reality of the way the law works. The law in general, and when I say the law, this is actually federal highway has a standard. I simplify it to call it the 80th percentile rule. That the 80th percentile rule is if they believe that people go by an average motorist, 80% of the motorists drive by someone's on a street and they're driving by at 40 miles an hour, then if 80% of the people drive at 40 or less, then the speed limit is 40 miles an hour. So it really is more based upon the conditions of the road. If you have a sharp turn in the road, then generally people slow down and there's opportunity. In my time that I've been in Harwich, which I guess is just over about 2.5 years at this point, there is one intersection that has been problematic in town, and it's the Route 39 Orleans Road at Pleasant Bay Road. The issue there, it has, and I can't remember the exact statistic, but the Cape Cod Commission looks at several locations as well as Mass DOT, Department of Transportation, and they look at areas for the amount of vehicles that go through an intersection and then the amount of vehicles that go through the intersection at the percentage that have crashes. And in this one, it has had a fatality. So it certainly is a dangerous intersection in terms of that. I think it was in 2005 or 2006 there was a fatality. But they look at the number of crashes. And I think what concerns about that intersection, and it is one of the higher crash intersections on the Cape, is that you have the number of crashes are more than what would be typical for any other intersection. So they have a fair number of crashes. I don't think it has a high percentage for crashes with injury, although we have just recently completed a report through the Commission on that intersection. And in the last, I think it's the last 2 years, there were 31 accidents at that intersection. And I think the concerning part is out of those 31, there was 15 that involved personal injury. So what the town has done, there is a whole discipline, if you will, to traffic engineering. I think everybody that drives has a viewpoint of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense for how to slow people down or how to make intersections safe. But there is a whole area of expertise, if you would, in the engineering world about how to make traffic intersections safer. So the town did go, administration through the selectmen asked for a road audit safety to be done. And this road safety audit. And in this road safety audit, they looked at the intersection and they looked at some of the parameters of that intersection, what potentially caused some of those accidents. I think it's interesting that most of those accidents that occur there, they use the word unattentive drivers, or the driver misinterpreted the distance they had to go across the intersection. So it's a little bit of a harder one in terms of that, because it's an intersection that has elements to it where people are trying, or they think they have a safe amount of distance and they really don't. And part of the study, which we have on the website, shows that if a car is going 30 miles an hour, it only takes 200 feet to stop. If a car is going 45 miles an hour, it takes, I think it's 360 feet to stop. So a significant greater amount. And when you commingle, this is what I've learned from other engineers or engineers in this business, that when you commingle cars doing, if the speed limit's 45, realistically people are probably doing 45 or potentially even 50. So you're talking about a larger amount of distance needed for a safe stop. So one of the things that we're looking at in the report, and it came out of the report from traffic engineers, is if you're going to commingle cars that are at a stopped location with cars that are passing through doing 50 miles an hour, that's probably one of the most hazardous conditions that you can have. We have done some work up there already. We put in the Christmas tree stop sign, if you would, with the lights around the edges. Unfortunately, the number of accidents were 15 in the year before we installed that and 16 in the year after we installed that. So I don't think that that is an indicator that that by itself was successful in reducing the number of accidents. The other thing that we did put in, and it was put in November of 2015, was some line striping. And we created an island there to just raise the driver's awareness that they're going through a section and they need to slow down. We created kind of a warning island, if you would. I guess the positive to that, for 2016, it appears that we've only had 3 accidents at that location. My concern, though, is not just the number of accidents, but to have people that are injured. You know what? People should have an expectation of how can you come through the community and do so safely, and how can government try to create those conditions of having as much safety as we can. So one thing that the report indicates is that we need to look at sight distance. As I indicated, that if you're going 45 miles an hour and it takes you 360 feet before you can effectuate a complete stop, we need to make sure that you can see out to beyond that 360 feet. So we give people the opportunity to see the cars coming. So I think that one of the things that we will look at is trying to improve some signage in the area to make sure people are aware that it's an intersection coming up, try to improve the sight visibility. The more, in what the report calls the more longer term remedies, would be to do potentially a light, just a flashing light, a beacon, if you would. They don't in the report indicate that that's going to be a very positive outcome. They don't think that that will. You don't change the dynamic of people running a red light or people going through a stop sign. The other they recommend in there, or not recommend, but have as an option, is to have a full signalized intersection. So now you get the full the 3 red, yellow, and green lights. And that is something that they say probably will be more effective to some degree in controlling that. The other one, and I have to admit, I've been doing this for 25 years. I spent 7 years in one organization dealing with traffic engineers, and I'm not a giant fan at all of rotaries. I don't think rotaries are very effective, and they create a lot of side crashes. But they have these things called roundabouts, and we have one already in the town of Harwich, up at Route 39 and Queen Anne Road. And the design behind a roundabout is it gets traffic to go slower. You can't go straight through an intersection. You have to go around the roundabout. And they generally recommend roundabouts where you have heavy traffic in one main level and then smaller side traffic coming into it. That's a better application, which is the application that we do have at this intersection. So I did make a recommendation, I think over a year ago, to the selectmen that we should ultimately get to a roundabout. After reading the report, I think a roundabout continues to make sense. And will it be the be-all and end-all and fix all the traffic issues? Absolutely not. But the one thing it will do, I believe very much, is that when you have traffic coming in and it's commingling going 20 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, the severity of accidents and this opportunity for injury will be significantly decreased. I think the literature that they provided said that there was, I believe, an 84% decrease in the severity of accidents when you install a roundabout. So I do think it has some real merit. Obviously, we will look at all the different elements and do a roundabout. Is not an inexpensive proposition, but it's something that I think we should seriously give some consideration to. So I just wanted to walk people through a little bit some traffic safety issues, especially where we're in the middle of summer and traffic on Cape Cod tends to be a little heavier in the summertime. So just to let people know at home what some of the thought process goes into various traffic issues that exist in the community. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. Christopher Clark, Town Administrator, Town of Harwich.